The problem you have is you're not even willing to admit, I mean, we can't even have an agreement on what the FBI said was disinformation. How do you propose that you're going to have an office of disinformation governance if you see the problem in even determining what is disinformation?
Oh, Senator
Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. In this episode, I'll be reacting to a clip here of Senator Rand Paul supposedly destroying DHS Secretary Mayorkas regarding this Disinformation Governance Board. As always, folks, I haven't seen this clip, so you'll be getting a real-time reaction as well as opinion on this. And as always, folks, if you want to support us here at the Bald Brad Show, heck, toss us a like and subscribe. Share this link with your friends and family all over social media. With that being said, let's jump into this clip.
Do you think the Steele dossier included Russian disinformation?
Senator, that's not a question that I'm equipped to answer.
It was in the public news. It was you may have heard of it, the Mueller investigation. It was a $32 million investigation that went over a couple of years. Horowitz was an investigator general, and he looked at the FBI's activity in the beginning of this. And what the FBI concluded was that there were FBI agents throughout this period of time who concluded that, yes, the dossier was full of Russian disinformation. So let's say it is Russian disinformation. You say your new Disinformation Governance Board is going to help the public with disinformation. You claim it's not going to be about domestic, it's going to be about foreigners and those evil Russians. So here's my question. The FBI concludes that the Steele dossier was full of Russian disinformation. CNN propagated this disinformation gladly for years and years. The difference, I guess, between your opinion and our opinion is that, as despicable as it is that CNN propagated this disinformation, I wouldn't shut them down. I wouldn't lecture them. I wouldn't put it on a government website that CNN's wrong for propagating disinformation. The problem you have is you're not even willing to admit, I mean, we can't even have an agreement on what the FBI said was disinformation. How do you propose that you're going to have an office of disinformation governance if you see the problem in even determining what is disinformation?
Oh, Senator
I promise we'll continue. I have to pause it throughout just for copyright reasons, but also I want to be able to give my opinion on this. I love the way he's doing his line of questioning because he's starting with basically this Russian hoax. And he's saying, look, if the FBI and the American people can't come together and agree upon what is disinformation and what isn't, there's a massive problem. And I'm curious to see if he's going to start questioning about Nina Jankowicz, who's put in charge of this Disinformation Governance Board, because she pushed this whole Russian disinformation regarding Hunter Biden's laptop. And she still hasn't come out and said that she was wrong regarding it, that it was in fact real, it was in fact factual, it wasn't disinformation. So I'm wondering if he's setting him up here. I'm curious, but I like this line of questioning so far.
Because our work is not focused on disinformation writ large. Where we, the Department of Homeland Security, become involved is when there's a connectivity between disinformation and threats to the security of the homeland.
Well, that's what the Russians might be considered that. You mentioned the Russians the other day when you tried to pivot away from this being about censorship. But let's say it is the Russians. I know you're not going to ever agree that the Steele dossier, which y'all spent so much money on, was disinformation. But it was, and the FBI concluded. But let's just say there's an imaginary disinformation. You've discovered tomorrow Russian disinformation that's going to hurt our national security, and CNN's broadcasting it. What are you going to do?
Senator, let me...
You're going to tell Putin, you shouldn't do this.
Senator,
what are you going to do?
Senator, let me explain what we do in the Department of Homeland Security with respect to disinformation, and frankly, what we've been doing for nearly 10 years across different administrations. The cartels propagate disinformation.
I don't know if you saw my video where this guy went on Brett Baer's show.
It was talking about the magnets. The drug cartel, the smugglers are spreading disinformation among the people in the countries.
If you haven't seen that, I'm going to leave a card above for you folks, because we do a ton of video clips with this dullard here, just completely not able to answer anybody's questions, and we're just seeing it again. This guy is just an empty head, that's for darn sure.
Information that Title 42 does not apply to a particular community of migrants from a particular country.
How are they propagating this?
If I may, through social media, and what we do through U.S. Customs and Border Protection is actually communicate via social media and other channels that is false, that we do apply Title 42.
So let's say there's Russian
Unbelievable.
disinformation as well. Are you going to take to social media and broadcast that people are broadcasting something incorrect about what do you think is Russian disinformation?
Senator, let me emphasize.
Well, you said the other day Russians, and now you're saying not so much the Russians, you're saying the cartels.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not, Senator. You're mischaracterizing my statement.
Then what are you going to do if there's Russian disinformation? You're going to broadcast something on social media?
Allow me to share when we become involved in the Department of Homeland Security. We become involved when disinformation poses a threat to the security of our country. It is when there's a connectivity
Who judges that?
to a threat to our country. It could be a threat, a connectivity to violence. And what this working group does.
This seems so broad, and this is not only was this board a fear of mine in general, basically a ministry of truth, but you hear the way he's just talking in broad terms.
Hey, whatever a threat is, Senator, whatever we determine is a threat to Homeland.
It's like, but what is the criteria for that? Is just whatever you guys think is a threat? Because you guys think Republicans, conservatives are a threat when they post something factual, and you got the left censoring them and removing their accounts from Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and all these places. So again, what exactly are you qualifying as a threat and being very specific in that? Again, I'm not for any of this governance board, so I'm just merely being nitpicky with what this guy's saying. I think the whole thing should be shut down. But, you know, this guy's being very broad, and his kind of his language is a little worrisome, that's for sure.
What this working group does is precisely what I would think you would want it to do, which is to take a look at the work, the disinformation work that our department has done, and ask the following questions. Do we have policies? Do we have guardrails? Do we have standards?
But here's the
to
problem.
ensure,
We
if I
can't
may,
even
this is
agree. We can't even
extremely-
agree what disinformation is.
This is-
You
well-
can't even agree that it was disinformation, that the Russians fed information to the Steele dossier. If you can't agree to that, how are we ever going to come to an agreement on what is disinformation so you can police it on social media?
Yep.
Senator, I have 2 points, if I may finish. Number one, that what this office, what this working group does, because it's not an office.
Guy, dude.
What this working group does is ensure that there are guardrails, definitions, standards to make sure that the free speech rights, the civil rights, civil liberties, and privacy rights of individuals
So
are
do you
not
think
impinged.
do you think
Feel
COVID
safe
do you
now,
think
folks.
COVID do you think COVID
If I may.
do you think COVID disinformation threatens our national security?
And number two, if I may, Senator, and number two, is it your proposition that when the cartels spread disinformation with respect to our immigration policies to try to lure vulnerable migrants to our border illegally?
I think you've
that
got
we
no
should
idea
take
what
action?
disinformation is, and I don't think the government's capable of it. Do you know who the greatest propagator of disinformation in the history of the world is? The U.S. government. Are you familiar with McNamara, the Pentagon Papers? Are you familiar with George W. Bush and the weapons of mass destruction? Are you familiar with Iran-Contra? I mean, think of all the debates and disputes we've had over the last 50 years in our country. We work them out by debating them. We don't work them out by the government being the arbiter. I don't want you guardrails. I want you to have nothing to do with speech. You
Damn
think we
right.
can't determine, speech by traffickers is disinformation? You think the American people are so stupid they need you to tell them what the truth is? You can't even admit what the truth is.
They do think the American people stupid. That's why the government wants to encroach upon their rights. They want to be the arbiters of truth. They want to dictate what you can and cannot do constantly. And the Democrats love this, by the way. The Democrats want that type of control upon the American people. The Democrats want to control speech because if you can control speech, you control the narrative. You control the narrative, you control the culture. If you control the culture, vice versa, you can also control the narrative as well. So this stuff, Rand Paul's speaking nothing but truths here, folks. And you should never trust the government for your safety, really. But even furthermore, policing your speech is nuts. I can't even believe in 2022 we're having this conversation right now.
With the Steele dossier. I don't trust government to figure out what the truth is. Government is largely disseminating disinformation. So I do have a question, and here's the question. So the Russians, maybe some cartels. What about COVID disinformation? Is that in your bailiwick for your disinformation governance board?
Senator, you would have to give me the details with.
Okay, here, I've said a million times, I've said a million times that cloth masks don't work. YouTube takes me down. They're a private company. I can have that beef with them. What about you? You going to look at that? I often say that natural immunity from having had the infection is equal to the vaccine or better. You going to take that down?
Well, first of all,
Those are very specific.
Senator, first of all, it's not for us to take it down. And second of all,
are you going to put information out there saying that I'm spreading disinformation?
Senator, we are not the public health experts to make those determinations.
So public health won't be part of the Disinformation Governance Board. No COVID disinformation. Yes or no?
Senator?
Yes or no? Is public health going to be part of your censorship group?
Somebody allow me, because you're presenting hypotheticals that are vague, ambiguous.
I just gave you a very specific one on cloth masks.
He's being extremely specific. Rand Paul is. This dude, Mayorkas, the DHS secretary, is being the one that's broad and just speaking generals.
Oh, well, the drug cartel.
And Rand Paul's like, well, I'm talking about the Russians.
But the drug cartel, I tell you, is they're spreading misinformation.
It's like, dude, please, for the love of God, answer a question. But we know we're not going to get out of him, folks. We know he's not going to answer anything Rand Paul's questioning.
I gave you a very specific one on immunity from previous infection.
I answered your question, but let me answer the last question that you posed. Do not, under any circumstances, accept a vaccine at a FEMA overseen vaccination center because they are actually peddling fentanyl. Now, should I sit back and take that, or should I actually disseminate accurate information? That's what we would do. Should FEMA issue accurate information that the vaccinations that we are administering in the sites that we oversee actually are the COVID-19 vaccines?
I have a greater respect for the American people than you do. I think the American people can figure out the truth.
Right.
And if you think the American people need to be told there's not fentanyl in the vaccination, feel free to say it. But the thing is if you are going to go around saying that you are the arbiter of information and of disinformation, I think you have no clue. And you don't have the perspective history knowing that disinformation, the largest progenitor of disinformation in our history has probably been the U.S. government.
I've never said that, and actually I've said the exact opposite.
Thank you,
We
sir.
are not the truth police.
We're not the truth police, but we're gonna be.
It's like, dude, this guy is creepy, a little bit evil, it seems like. I don't know this person obviously specifically, but the stuff that he says, folks, should be terrifying. This is some Orwellian stuff. I've always said, if you give the government an inch, they're going to take a mile. And this is what's happening here, folks. You do not want to give them an inch on this freedom of speech, on this Disinformation Governance Board. The second you do, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Government entities always get bigger and bigger. They hardly ever get smaller. They hardly ever get removed. They hardly ever get dissolved. This is a terrible thing that we're trying to do. And he's going, oh, well, we've been doing it for 10 years, Rand. We've been doing it for 10 years, Senator. Who cares if we've been doing it for 10 years? Doesn't mean it's right. You can do a lot of bad things for 10 years. That doesn't make it correct. So this whole thing, folks, is nuts. He's not answering questions, which should worry you. Rand Paul gives him specific things to answer. He can't do it. Then he goes on about this FEMA and fentanyl. Yes, if somebody wants to post some ridiculous things, that's fine. We're all capable of doing our research. We're all somewhat educated. So look, if somebody wants to believe in that, they believe in it. If somebody doesn't want to believe in it, they don't have to believe in it. And then we create content on here and we talk about it and we debate. We bring people on their shows. We have conversation to see what's the best answer, what's the best data, what's the best conclusion, what's the best interpretation. And then from all that speech, we seek after the truth and we find it and we go with it. But that's not what the government thinks. The government thinks, hey, we know what's best for you. We know what's right for you at home. They don't know your name. They don't know anything like that. They just want your money and they want to dictate what you can and cannot say, what you can and cannot do. And at some point, obviously, a little bit of that is truth of dictating what you can and cannot do because it could hurt somebody physically. Like you cannot murder people, obviously. But this is going way beyond that. We have a right to free speech. It's not supposed to be limited. It's just supposed to be out there for everybody. But again, I know I'm repeating myself, folks. This is so scary. This is like next level scary. The fact that you have the government going,
we're the arbiters of truth. We're going to tell you what you can and cannot say.
And they're going, oh, well, we're not going to remove it. Folks, do you believe that one bit? They've already been doing it, right? They've already been removing stuff. They've been shadow banning people. Most of it's been coming from private companies or even public companies. You have Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, all these people, which is what Rand Paul was speaking of. He goes, look, I say that, cloth masks don't work. They don't work. You read the studies and they don't work. The doctor will tell you straight to your face. Multiple doctors will tell you. Your own physician will probably tell you, yeah, they don't work. They don't stop. So he's being removed from these platforms for speaking something that's an actual factual truth, something that's been done in studies that you can look up over and over and over again. And he's bringing that to his attention going, hey, are you going to remove that? And he's not willing to answer it. Why? Because we know what they're going to do. If it's something they disagree with, but it's factual, they will say it's disinformation. Case in point, folks, the Russian disinformation hoax, the Russian disinformation regarding Hunter Biden's laptop, still hasn't apologized for it, still considers it disinformation. Nina Jankowicz, which was never brought up here, unfortunately, the person heading this whole governance board said continuously and still hasn't retracted that it was disinformation, Russian disinformation specifically, which is what Rand Paul keeps honing in on here. He wants to talk about drug cartel, whatever. The person heading it still has not apologized, still has not retracted. And this should worry all of us. Because again, it's not about disinformation. It's not even about misinformation. It's about controlling the culture and controlling the narrative. And if they could do so, then they can control the American people and sway them into voting who they want to. They can control their rights. They can control everything about them. And that's what this is all about. Government control. We should not be allowing this to happen. It should be dissolved immediately or not even allowed to be started. Not even close. So I'm praying that the government doesn't go through with this. I'm hoping for the love of God, our politicians have some sort of inkling of justice or inkling of what the government should or shouldn't do and just not allow this to go through. This is mind-blowing for me, folks. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments. Are you worried with this? Or are you just kind of like, it's not that big of a deal? Let me know in the comments below. I really do want to read these. And also, I think it'll create good, positive conversation in the chat with our Bald Brad community here. And folks, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. It's Friday. Share this link with your friends and family all over social media. Heck, let's get the Bald Brad Show growing here, folks. The goal is 10,000 by the end of 2022. Let's make it happen. It can only be done with your help, and well, heck, my help too by uploading videos. And folks, I will see you later today here on the Bald Brad Show.